there was a line in the audition that talked about fudging paperwork. It was
Oh yeah.
like, just take take the rest from page 8 on and lose those pages and then send in the rest, right? And so that to me is like your perfect warrant officer. It's a type of rank in the military that is just like usually very competent, not into protocol, like not into following rules,
Mm-hmm.
but gets stuff done and is well respected. And so like I channeled that idea of a warrant officer. Like I'm not interested in paperwork. I'm interested in results, but you do need to follow, like there's a system involved. And that's all I did. Like that's the perspective of Wriothesley. And I think if I had just been like, I'm a prison warden, right? Like I'm so tough,
Yeah.
it would have come off really inauthentic.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode on GachaCast. Today we have another special guest, Joe Zieja.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Going great. We're so glad to have you. This is quite the opportunity. I have to say, when we sent out emails to a lot of actually different Genshin voice actors, and when I saw that reply from Joe, I was like, wait a minute. Of all people, Joe got back with us? That's crazy. Because I just think it's really awesome. But we are in our last episode, we talked with Ray Chase, the voice of Nicolette. Had a great time there. The man is awesome.
He's a cool dude.
His new game with Date Everything, just getting to hear about that and his journey was really cool. And I know you're not a actual character, but I do know that you did do a lot do whistling. And
I did.
That didn't
I
go
did,
unnoticed. I know
all of
you
the
like
whistling
do
for
some
every
yeah.
single one of the character themes, as well as they had me as like a session whistler for the soundtrack, and there was one other thing I did in there that I can't quite remember. I think there's a character called Bernadette, who's like a little bird, and I think I provided the whistling for that as well.
Yeah, because I know whistling is like one of your like things you do, and it's like
like a weird surrogate skill that I never expected to go anywhere, but here we are.
Hey, let's use it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So,
yeah, absolutely.
One of the first questions we have, actually, Vixen, I think you have the notepad there. You want to read that off?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, like normal, we kind of just want to get to know a little bit more about, obviously, behind the, the voices, get to know the people behind the voices themselves. And so, obviously, we know you've had a very differing, I guess, career in general, multiple as well, different careers as well, and getting to where you are today. So I guess the first question we had was, how did you get into voice acting? And I know you've talked a lot about that as well, and some things you've done before that as well, and then getting into voice acting, what kind of, sparked that?
Yeah, sort of like a weird random story. My history is I was a military intelligence officer for the United States Air Force for a long time. I had gotten out and I had moved on to government contracting, but I had maintained my status as a reservist. And so reservists have like sometimes a unique thing where like I work on weekends, but the squadron I'm attached to doesn't work on weekends. So it turned out that like I'm the only dude in the unit on a Saturday morning, and so there's nothing to do, and so I'm spending my time and your tax dollars chatting with another friend of mine who I knew from like a writing group, and we were just talking about nothing. And I said, oh, voice acting sounds like a cool idea. I really didn't know anything about it at all. And he's like, well, my company used to hire people from this website to do our marketing videos. There's probably there's more out there than games and anime and cartoons. So why don't you give it a shot? So having been like a hobbyist musician, I had a bunch of recording equipment. I understood the basics of like how to lay down a decent sounding track. And so I went home and that day signed up for a website and booked one of the first gigs I auditioned for. It paid me $100, and I was like, I did this $100 job in 10 minutes. Can I do that again? And so over the next 8 months, just basically attacked it with reckless abandon. And since I had a nice stable government job, any money I made, I called it my voiceover monopoly money because I could just put it back into the studio. So like I had, it's not that expensive to really start a home studio. So within a couple of jobs, I basically had the setup I have now, minus like the physical aspect, like the actual built-in booth. And just auditioned for absolutely everything under the sun. I mean, I must have auditioned several thousand times in the first 8 to 12 months.
It's a lot.
By the time the next year rolled around, I was out earning my government job, and I was like, guys, I can't work 2 jobs. I'm extremely stressed. I was getting sick like every 2 weeks just because I was doing a 9 to 5 and then a 5 to 9. And I was like, look, I either am going to have to quit or I can go part-time. Which do you want? and they kind of graciously let me slip out into part-time. And so I did part-time work for the government as I solidified my career. I'm in Virginia at this point, by the way, not Los Angeles. And then
Okay.
quit my job completely in October 2014. And then 8 months later after that, moved to LA to hunt kind of like bigger and different work. So that's sort of the origin story.
Yeah, yeah, and I knew a little bit about that, but hearing some more snippets in there, like didn't know you were in Virginia, didn't know some stuff
Mhm.
about like the squadron. I only knew about that stuff a little bit because I actually am a student in your course, so
Oh,
you
cool.
talked
Yeah. So
about
you
that
get
in there
you
a
got
little
the
bit.
origin story for sure.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had the origin story from there, but getting to a little bit more on a personal level it's really interesting and cool. Also cool
Cool.
for the viewers too. Like, there's more to Wriothesley than just his cake. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
there's
Seriously.
more.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's very interesting things because like you said, it seems like that's kind of the very different thing, I guess, with voice actors is that you kind of are thinking, oh, okay. A lot of people always just think it's just kind of one big role that just almost plummets you
Yeah.
into voice acting. It's like, oh, I just happened to get called up by this amazing casting director who's like, I just love your voice. I have to
Oh
have
man,
you.
that's the Hollywood of like the
Exactly.
1960s and 70s, right? Those stories,
Right.
sure, they happened, but they do
Mhm.
not happen now with any level of frequency. The
Right.
career is, I mean, the internet opened up the whole career, so now it can be very grindy, and no one job is really going to skyrocket you anywhere outside of the idea of like social media clout.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually
Right.
just a cool article. I only got halfway through reading it before something interrupted me. But the Baldur's Gate 3 cast did like an interview and they were like, "Oh, this didn't help our careers at all." Right? Like it didn't beget more work.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because wasn't one of
So
those lead actors pretty new, if I remember right? Just voice acting in general. So like a really nice first big role for him.
mhm.
So yeah, but like yeah, you have there's more work that you need to still do. It's not like, all right, I landed this
I
big role.
audition
All
every
right,
day, right? Yeah,
I'm good.
like yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
seems like it's also like kind of, and this is something similar to what Ray Chase had said. It's not something that you just sit there and you get to kind of bank on your repertoire. Like don't get me wrong, the repertoire is nice and everything, but it's really about being easy to work with, and that's definitely something that he kept bringing up is always being easy to work with, and how, at least how I took that as someone who's not in the industry, obviously, was more like if you have a casting director there that's wanting you to do something, it's okay, let me work with it, let me work with you and kind of actually figure out what how can we make this kind of sound good, not how can I do it.
Yeah, absolutely a collaborative process. There's a term that I've coined recently that I call the talent entrepreneur, which is you need to have both. Like you can't just be talent anymore. That's old world. That's waiting to get discovered. That's
Mm-hmm.
my agent books all of my work for me, and I don't know how to do anything from a business side. Um, you need to have both skill sets, and part of being an entrepreneur is being easy to work with, is making it easy for clients to choose you, which is a huge part. Like removing friction between you and the client is a huge thing in business. And it's the same thing in voice acting. You do not want to be the guy that's known as the diva in the booth. Those guys stop getting hired. There have been people in
yep,
like that are popular in the industry who like had a big dip in their career while they had a come to Jesus moment where they're like, you know what? I really am just a dude behind a microphone and I need to remember that. Right.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think yeah, once again, really interesting knowing a little bit more about your backstory and like just how you got into voice acting. One of our next things we wanted to ask you is just kind of out of all of the projects you've done, we've looked at the repertoire. I'm sure a lot of viewers have as well. There's a lot of cool stuff you've done. The voice of Bumblebee, Claude from Fire Emblem, the list goes on. Obviously, we're here for the Genshin people, Wriothesley. But out of all of the projects you've done, what would you say is your personal favorite?
My personal favorite is always consistently a Nickelodeon show that was on just before SpongeBob, like every Sunday for a couple of years, called Lego City Adventures. Um,
Okay.
it was my first big lead in an animated series, and
Hmm.
but the unique part about it wasn't so much. I mean, like the show was funny, like it was a fun job to work on. It didn't like pay
Hmm.
any different than any other job or whatever. It was just a union animation series. But the unique part about it, where it was the meeting of the old world and the new world. In the old world, you would always have these ensemble casts. So anybody who you like listen to, you growing up, your Saturday morning cartoon stuff, that was probably all of the actors in the same room at the same time. It's called an ensemble recording.
Right.
That does not happen anymore. It just doesn't. except for, weirdly, network TV animation. And even then it's dying as well. As everything kind of became remote, you no longer have this. But for Lego City Adventures, which started recording in 2017, I walked in on the first day and it's 12 chairs and Fred Tatasciore is there. I worked with Troy Baker and Nolan North. I worked with Roger Craig Smith. I worked for the voice of Johnny Bravo, worked with the voice of Dexter from Dexter's Lab. People that like were in the freaking like Hanna-Barbera era of animation. And like I remember walking in as like relative, I had been in LA for a year and a half at that point. And I was like, did you guys call the right guy? Because like I don't belong in this room. This room is legends. And God, we just laughed our asses off for 4 seasons. We were incredible clowns. We got a lot of work done, but we were absolute clowns. And so it was a ton of fun. And I learned a tremendous amount about acting. I think I learned more in that job about how to approach scripts by watching these greats than any other job I've ever been on. So like incredibly rewarding, incredibly fun, and extremely educational. I think it made me a much better actor as well.
So
That's awesome.
I guess like my question, I guess after hearing that is, do you, I guess, I mean, obviously different instances have different, you know, desires. And obviously I'm sure working at home is also very nice as well. And having your own kind of setup and taking the time to kind of do things. But do you ever feel like sometimes you would rather have like that same thing keep going on and, you know, have the ability to just like be there and face to face with other voice actors?
You know, it would be cool. I really enjoy, I've done mocap work several times, which is, you know, like on the mocap volume and the light bulb suit that's very unflattering.
Yes.
And that's great because it's like theater acting on the playground. It's like totally imaginative.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to interact with other actors. One of the things that's really interesting, I was just talking about this with students a couple days ago, Mads Mikkelsen, right? Everybody knows who that is, like the big movie actor.
Mm-hmm.
Auditioned for Fantastic Four. And like he posted this thing about how he's really annoyed about the idea of the Fantastic Four audition. He was like, I came in and they told me to pretend to stretch my arm out and there was no scene. It was really, I think did he say frustrating or not embarrassing? I think he said it was frustrating. It was like pointless. And I was like, well, it's good to know that Mads Mikkelsen will never steal my job because that's what we do every day in the booth, right? Like I don't even have other people to bounce off of. We're lucky if I'm wearing pants. Right. It's like I'm in the same room. There's nothing in front of me. It's entirely imaginative. It's very different from on-camera stuff.
Thank you, COVID.
So it is
changed that a lot.
Yeah, it is nice to go into the room with other people every once in a while. Also, I was a home studio guy long before COVID. I would say 80% of my work was always in my home studio. And then after COVID, now it's like 95%. If I go into a studio once a week, it feels like a lot.
You're like, okay, guys, let's calm down here. Can I go back home, please? No, but yeah, I mean, that makes sense, though. I mean, it definitely feels, especially like no matter what you do, whether it's, you know, having more people is definitely, you can bounce off of with a lot easier, like you talked about. Whereas if you're just kind of sitting there yourself, it's probably easier to maybe what you would call like crank out, you know, what you need to get done and maybe helps you
100%.
focus a lot more. But like you said, it's almost those connections that you make. And you know, you talking about, you know, it sounded like at that point you were a couple years into the industry at that point, but you had these legends kind of helping you. And I'm sure at some point, you know, you might go into a room where, like you're talking about going into a studio with some other people, and there's probably people walking in going, why am I sitting in a chair next to Joe Zieja? You know, like, wait a minute, hold up. You know, so I'm sure like, you know, that also helps newer people like you talked about how you were they were an influence for you. And I'm sure that's definitely happened for other people as well. So that might be it's a cool thing that probably doesn't have to happen all the time, but it's definitely maybe a nice thing every once in a blue moon.
I think the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction. I think there's a lot of stuff that just like didn't need to happen in studio. I mean, like I personally, you know, in my advanced years, I'll get a little diva-ish if like they want me to drive an hour for a commercial session and I get there and everyone else is remote. And I'm like, I have this microphone. I have this preamp. Why am I here? Why did you make me like, you just cut my hourly wage in a third because it took me 3 times as long to get here. So like there's that. But yeah, like we never talk to each other anymore. Like it's, I very even rarely see a director's face. I think the pendulum has gone a little too far in one direction, and it's starting to come back. there are a couple studios now that are insisting that talent come in, which again is great. But then the other people need to be there as well. There's no point in
Right.
making a talent come in if nobody else is there. It's the same thing an hour away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, like, especially at least from what I've heard in Japan, at least, they definitely still keep that. And that's probably more of a tradition thing. But maybe out here in the West, it's probably a little bit different in maybe ease of everything. And it's probably a lot, maybe if it's less money to not have, that space being used in the studio, whatever it may be. So there's definitely some hurdles, I guess, that there has to be.
Mhm.
But so I guess beyond that, looking, I guess, kind of, we've talked about your career. We've talked about also maybe one thing that you really liked and even kind of the hurdles that come along with it. But if there was one character that, I mean, and you've done so much, so this might take a second, but maybe the character, and we asked this of Ray Chase as well, and he had an interesting answer. So the question is, what character do you feel embodied who you might see yourself as? Like who you as a character might be?
Oh, like who's the character that was just so close to
It was
center
almost
for
like,
me?
yeah, it was almost like you just sort of like, oh, I can just
Yeah.
kind of walk in and
Which
just be
character
me,
is Joe Zieja?
or maybe as close as possible.
That's tough. It could be Bumblebee, the version of Bumblebee that I did,
Mm-hmm.
because he was just so damn cynical. Like me in the military, like I was extremely cynical. I was like, oh my God. Like just I was really didn't have a lot of faith in like the system. So I resonated a lot with Bumblebee being like, you're gonna get everybody killed. Right? Like that was like he was always ragging on Optimus. But Claude was really close as well. Kind of a water off a duck's back kind of guy in the military academy, that kind of vibe is very me. Claude's way more relaxed than I ever was in the military, but the attitude was similar. I'd say probably a mix between those two guys.
Okay, yeah, and I guess that can kind of make sense because I've heard a lot of Claude speaking, and I'm like, man, that just sounds like everyday Joe. Like,
Yeah, I
you
think
didn't
there's
really
a
have to.
lot of characters that I've done that mostly sound like everyday me.
Yeah,
Bumblebee and Fox and Claude and Achilles from Fate Apocrypha. Most of the characters that I do are just my voice. And I actually, well, I teach these to students all the time. Like nobody criticizes Ryan Reynolds for having the same voice in every movie,
Right.
right? That's totally natural. It's all about the perspective that you put on the character.
right.
Yeah, and speaking of, I guess, perspective, I guess, like you kind of, it's definitely seen because obviously you might have your own voice. And I think that's another thing a lot of people always think about with voice acting. When people might initially go, and obviously, you have your own voice acting class as well. So I'm sure a lot of people, and maybe even their initial thoughts when they go into voice acting is, okay, I have to sound different. I have to do this voice. I have to change this, change that. I can't get into voice acting, Joe, because I can't do a Mickey Mouse voice or I can't do an XYZ voice.
Yeah.
And yeah, like
Yeah.
it is almost seen like you can't do a voice, therefore you can't voice act. But especially like what you're talking about, it's almost like that's nobody needs that anymore. Nobody, like you said, it's just not needed as much.
They want
There are
you,
people that
yeah.
want voices, but they want that person.
And like, honestly, people who have the voice don't get hired anymore because it sounds inauthentic. If you
Mhm.
take the guys that are like, yes, hello, my name is John Malcolm, and I'm, like, you won't hear those people on commercials anywhere anymore because it sounds forced. It sounds
Right.
like radio. Don LaFontaine, who was like, in a world, right? Like that's
Yeah.
that's
I was waiting
him,
for
right?
that.
The only people that sound like that get hired are people making fun of that voice. Trends change, and the golden voice is not really a thing anymore.
Mhm.
People want real. People want grounded. People want to sound like somebody you can meet in a bar, and that's just you. That's just you.
Yeah, just bring yourself. That's all they're asking for. That's why they hired you.
It's almost
Yeah.
like that kind of connects you to the characters too, and especially obviously with gachas, you know, looking at a gacha game, obviously things like Fire Emblem, things like Genshin, and all these other games, it takes a lot of time and effort for someone to want to pull a character or go after a character. And so a lot of the times, like you said, it's somebody that they can resonate with from the story, and actually, like you said, meet someone almost at the bar. And speaking of, looking at Wriothesley is very, very akin to, I think if we just slapped on a beard on him, I was like, okay, why does...
Joe.
Because when you had been first released, I was like, okay, did they literally just like make the character look like him? Like what kind of happened here?
Yeah.
Because if you just basically put Wriothesley in a beard, he just almost looks like you. So like you said though, the way that he talks, the way that he acts is very down to earth, and it's almost very personable. He's a very personable character, and that's definitely how it feels coming across, and definitely in the story it feels that way. But you can definitely hear it in, and I think also why a lot of people like the character, because he definitely has a very good rating among Genshin players. Is that a lot of people like
He
Wriothesley,
does.
and I think
Yeah.
it definitely comes from the fact that he's a very personable and almost a very real person.
Yeah, he is. He's very down to earth, especially for a guy who's a prison warden. And like I always like to say, like almost none of that's on me. That has to do with the writing, right? Like
Hmm.
I can only polish a turd so much, right? Like if you hand an actor like terrible writing, there's not much that he can do with it.
Right.
So it had to do with like keeping that character consistent and making sure that his perspective comes through. Just lending the voice to it is one small part of a long chain of creativity that brings a character and their resonance to life. And casting, right? One of my coaches in one of my higher level programs tells students all the time, "Oh, you've cast yourself well," which is like, I'm never going to play a pretty princess, right? Like that's not for me. I'm also probably never going to play a big giant orc. You want that? Call JB Blanc, call Steve Bloom. Don't call me,
Right.
right? Like that's not me. But like, JB Blanc in Risley would be a little weird. Like it just wouldn't. It's not
Right.
quite right. So there's an element of casting. Casting is an art. Figuring out, hey, what voice, what person fits this character the best. So there's a lot of things in the creative chain before it even gets to me.
And that might go back to like what you were talking about. If you try to fake that voice, right, and you, if you, maybe have like a normal register, you're maybe in a certain tone, and you try to fake a voice, and maybe you're thinking, oh, he's in. All you get from the character, the casting is, oh, he's a police warden, he's a warden of an area. He has to be this deep
Right.
voiced whatever. That you thinking that's going to help you in this scenario at the very least actually could have hurt. If you were casting.
It
So
would have. It
yeah.
would have hurt my audition. And I'll tell you exactly how I came up with this perspective from the audition that had nothing to do with my voice, which was there was a line in the audition that talked about fudging paperwork. It was like, just take take the rest from page 8 on and lose those pages and then send in the rest, right? And so that to me is like your perfect warrant officer. It's a type of rank in the military that is just like usually very competent, not into protocol, like not into following rules, but gets stuff done and is well respected. And so like I channeled that idea of a warrant officer. Like I'm not interested in paperwork. I'm interested in results, but you do need to follow, like there's a system involved. And that's all I did. Like that's the perspective of Wriothesley. And I think if I had just been like, I'm a prison warden, right? Like I'm so tough.
Yeah.
It would have come off really inauthentic and
Yeah,
awkward.
exactly. Like, who's this Wriothesley? It's just there's not a lot to this character. We want to see the inner depth of the character, and it definitely comes out to show by giving him that perspective, which I know that's a big thing in voiceover. It's not necessarily, just doing the voice, but something you talk about a lot from what I've heard, right? It's the perspective of the character. It means more than what voice almost that you're just giving them. You need to know where they're coming from.
Yeah, I was talking at a VO Atlanta, which is like the biggest United States voice actor conference. And I was on stage on a video game panel, and I knew I had a bunch of students in the audience. And I was like, okay, finish my sentence. It's not about, and then everybody in the audience goes, the voice.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not. That's not what acting is.
So I guess speaking into that, we've talked about it a lot already, and I guess if people don't already know, obviously you do have your own voice acting class. Is there maybe more that you can give us a little bit more into that, for people who are looking into voice acting, but also, just tell us a little bit about it as well.
Sure. It's a relatively newer venture from me, circa like 2023. I got questions all my career, not my life, all my career, but like, how did you do this? How did you do this? How do I get into it? And then like all those doubts and like, oh, I probably need to spend $70,000 on a studio. Oh, I can't do it because I don't have an agent. I can't do it because I don't live in LA. And one of the things that I found was there was no consistent baseline education for voice actors anywhere. There was 2 paths into the industry: one-on-one coaching or workshops. Both of them are prohibitively expensive and not sustainable, and only one side of the talent entrepreneur equation, right? There's nothing about like how to set up your sound. Like there was nothing. And I knew I didn't want to coach because I didn't really have the time for it. I still don't really have the time for it. Like I'm in the booth a lot. I'm, acting most of the time. But I was getting the same questions over and over again. And I was like, well, I'm going to answer these the same way every time. I could make a foundational theory course about like, hey, here's what the industry really looks like. Here are the methods you can use to get work. Here are the baselines of how to approach an audition, so that from an accessibility perspective, anyone could at least dabble, could get involved. Because it's a very gate kept, and I don't use that in like a pejorative sense industry. I use it in like there's no point of entry. There really was no point of entry other than I got to do that dumb thing where I moved to Hollywood with a dime in my pocket and a dream in my heart, like that kind of thing, which is a horrible idea. And so I came up with the Voice Acting Academy, which is the base. It ended up being the baseline course offered at learnvoiceacting.com. Learnvoiceacting.com kind of came afterwards and kind of encapsulated that academy as its core offering. But I've now had thousands of people go through that program, and I've launched hundreds of careers. And even if you go through it and you're like, you know what, this isn't for me, it's an easily accessible point of data that you can grab that just wasn't available before. And people have taken it and gone on to be like full-time voice actors and gone through some of my other higher education programs after that. But that baseline theory just like was not extant in the industry. And it's been a really cool, it's grown way more than I ever thought it would. It's made me a much better actor because I finally have to explain to people what I'm doing, as opposed to just intuiting my way through the field. So that's like a little bit of the origin story of learnvoiceacting.com. There's tons of free resources as well. You don't have to get in my paid programs. Like I have a YouTube channel that publishes stuff like once a week on different little snippets. And so my goal was A, empower the actor to stop asking for permission, and B, make it accessible. Those are really like my two core principles of that enterprise.
Yeah, and it's been really awesome as a student, as someone who
I'm
can
glad.
like vouch for it. Actually, you said you started in 2023
Yes.
is when you kind of launched all of that. So the reason I find that interesting is because we were in university at the time, and I actually purchased the course in November of 2023 when you had the Black Friday sale.
Oh,
And it
yeah,
was
cool.
like only $300, and I was like, this is a sign. I've already been kind of interested in this thing for months now. This is the green flag. This is the last like thing, right? So I just went for it, and I love it because the course is not subscription based. It is just a one-time purchase, and you have it. It's tied to your email. You just log in, all of that. You just have it. You can rewatch it as much as you want
There
because you
forever.
have it, and that's just the most beautiful thing about it. I think not just the low price, even without the discount the amazing discount with that Black Friday deal I got, with the course only being roughly, what is it, like just around 1,000 or something. That's still
Oh no,
really
it's nowhere near
cheap.
that. $350.
It's
Yeah, it's cheaper than that.
wow.
Yeah, $350.
Okay.
It's like it's
No,
as
now
much as
it's
you
like
spend on an hour of a coach, right?
That's even better, yeah.
Okay, that's freaking awesome. Like even then though, it is so much cheaper, like you said, than to go get one-on-one coaching with professionals is really ridiculously expensive. Getting professional demos is a whole other expensive thing, and you teach people how to do, hey, you can make your own demo if you actually, just give it some time, give it a couple hours, craft this thing, and I will teach you how to do it. It's just the nice one-on-one, let me just show you how to do it, and there's no weird stuff in between. Like I'm not going to hide this or gatekeep this one thing over here. You actually like sat down, thought about the process of like, what am I doing? How can I show people how to do it as well? And it's been awesome for me as a student. I know I've seen other people's testimonies on, the Facebook, some of the other, medias that are tied to it. It's been quite the ride. So
I'm
I
glad.
think
That's
for
very
other
validating.
people,
Like it's good to see
yeah,
like when I make a thing, when you make anything, it's good
Yeah.
to see like, oh, the intended effect was achieved. And
Right.
everything you just said is exactly what I had intended.
Yeah, and it's just been awesome to see other people benefit, like you said.
Yeah,
And
it's cool.
I didn't make it, but I'm like, just fellow students. I'm like, man, good for you. Where's my audition now? Like, where's my first role?
Yeah, hell yeah.
We're still getting there, but we'll see. So,
Good.
but it's been great.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I've definitely even heard. I mean, I would come back from class and then I just see you just sitting at the computer, and it's just like I look over over your shoulder, and
yeah.
it's just like there's Joe, and I'm like, all right, another video's going up.
Yeah,
Cool.
you would come back from class, and you'd walk in the dorm, and I've got like your little intro. I just started a video. It always has the intro.
The intro theme, yeah.
Yeah, the intro theme. So it was
Cool.
just kind of funny. It was the thing
But-
that Vixen here has seen.
Yeah, no, I've witnessed it firsthand. Haven't obviously gone through it, but definitely witnessed it firsthand. And even still, like, yeah, you can definitely tell, and even the idea that you get to see a lot of people, kind of get this cool thing. And I've even heard stories of Rift doing you. I know you even have little talks with them as well, and almost get to sit down with special webcam talks that you get to see and talk to each get some questions maybe
Yeah,
at the
the
end of a talk.
webinars,
Yeah,
the
the
monthly
webinars you
webinars.
guys. So
Mm-hmm.
that's and it's not just it just goes to show that it's not just a kind of like one and done, hey, I did this thing to just kind of help people, now I'm just going to stand back and kind of let it work on its own. It still has your hands in it still to this day, and that's that's something you don't really see too much anymore. So it's really, really cool to see at least the time and attention you still give it as well. So
It's been really rewarding. Yeah, I have a nice team behind me now that help me kind of like keep it running smooth, and like I can create new content, and it's awesome. Yeah, I love it.
yeah. So I guess we don't want to take too much of your time, and obviously we want to say thank you for joining us
Yeah,
today.
of course.
But we do have one last question. We want to ask every single voice actor this question because it kind of comes down to the crux of a lot of questions. And obviously, if you guys are thinking about it, definitely go and check out. We'll probably put a link in the description looking at
Sweet.
Joe's course as well, and probably a lot more information. But we went to a convention recently, me and Rift, and there were some other voice actors there, and he had some like questions he had written down, and I kind of had like done and redone them, and I said the exact same thing last time, and I'll say it again. I am not a voice actor or an aspiring one, so I would butcher the question without looking at it, so I'm just gonna read it word for word.
Please do.
And the question I asked Rift, what he asked a lot of voice actors that kind of helped out was, looking back on your career path, what was the one thing that you did that boosted your career to where you are today the most?
It was the discipline with which I approached the career. And I think this is a very typical creative thing. It doesn't matter if you're a voice actor or an artist or a musician or whatever. You talk to many people that are like, I'm a musician, and you're like, well, how many songs you write? And you're like, well, right? Like, it's like
Right,
you
yeah.
give yourself the label, but then don't do the work. But for me, like, I could attack the voice acting industry with a little bit of military discipline, and start doing math, where it's like, okay, if I book 5 out of every 100 jobs and I get paid this much, how many jobs do I have to audition for to quit my current job, right? Like, it all becomes math, and it all becomes keeping it organized, being like self-motivated. So I went and did that work without, any real expectation of success, just to going and doing the work.
Yeah, they're already not hiring you.
Yeah, they're already not hiring
Yeah,
you.
I
It's
know that's
literally
the
like
answer.
there's
Yeah,
a sign
yeah.
in my booth. It says that was Pat Fraley who said that. Like, just go for it. I didn't wait for permission. And in some cases, like, not really knowing, stumbling my way into the voice acting industry was really advantageous, because I didn't have the baggage of, oh, well, you got to get an agent. Oh, well, you need to be in LA. Well, how many impressions can you do? Impressionists don't book work. You don't need to be in LA. I booked my first job on a microphone that cost me $67. Like, right. So I didn't have all that baggage, which was really advantageous. I could build my own career my own way. And now I teach other people to stop asking for permission too. So it's cool.
There you go. Nice and quick and simple. I think when we asked Ray that, it was more or less kind of like a very, just kind of be a very easy to work with person. And for you, it almost becomes, and every single time it looks like it's always, a lot of people are always thinking, okay, the typical answer people probably get in that type of question is usually just go do more work, just hit the books harder almost. And it's a very broad answer to a very broad question, to be fair. So this way though, it kind of helps people understand, okay, there are things that you can do that may not necessarily have immediate results, but give you something to constantly work for and have the confidence to keep going and keep pushing no matter what. So
I think that brings up a piece of advice that I give people all the time. And this is actually, I think, useful for anything. It doesn't matter what it is. If you can't control the outcome of something, it's not a goal. Your goal, I want to book more jobs, is not a goal. You can't control that outcome. You can't control the end result of someone picking your voice. What you can control is how hard you hunt audition opportunities, how many auditions you complete, how locked down your sound is. You can control how many hours per day you're putting into your craft. You cannot control whether you get an agent. You cannot control it. That decision is out of your hands.
Right.
So it's silly to make it a goal, because why would you make a goal that you can't hit? You have to have somebody else hit it for you. That's asking for permission. And that goes for lots of things in life, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's everything we have, obviously, for today. Thank you for very, very amazing insight, I guess, and even more just getting to know more behind you, Joe, as a person, and a little bit more behind just the faces that you do, or the voices specifically that you are. So, you know, definitely for everyone out in the audience, obviously, go ahead and check out Joe Zieja. Is there anything you want to like shout out, like, you know, social media and stuff like that, like where we can find you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the only Joe Zieja around, and learnvoiceacting.com is really easy to remember. So that's,
there you go.
Yeah, I nailed that domain name. If I nailed nothing else, boy, did I nail that domain name.
There you go, right? Just make sure I get that one down. Well, if you guys did enjoy the video, obviously, please go ahead and like and subscribe. I know that Joe makes a lot of content on his own YouTube channel. Well, once again, we'll also go ahead and link that in the description. So if you guys can want to go ahead and look at his to know more about voice acting and a lot of the things that do happen in the voice acting world. I know he talks a lot about, has some very, very good insight that I know a lot of people in the voice acting sphere often turn back to. So definitely go ahead and take a look at that, guys. And thank you guys once again, though, for watching the video. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks, guys.